Hi there everyone. In today's stock analysis video, I'd like to take a look at one of my favorite Latin American companies, that is Mercado Libre. Let's take a look. What does Mercado Libre do? Well, Mercado Libre translates literally into free market, but you have to buy things on their free market. It's an Argentinian company founded in 1999, so it's not really a new company. They've been around the block, and it has a few different business units. Some of these are considered core, and those are the e-commerce business, which is kind of a combination of eBay, but also Amazon, as well as a payment platform that's more than just a payment platform. In fact, it is also a digital wallet, and you have the ability to buy cryptos, and layered on top of this is the capability to take out loans. It also has an advertising platform. I mentioned the credit business already, and the other business unit is fairly similar to Shopify. So quite a diversified company, although the different areas of the business are obviously, as you can tell, quite synergistic, work well together. There are also a number of business units outside these core businesses. For example, there's a venture capital arm. They invest in other companies, as all large companies seem to these days. They have a type of investment service that individuals and consumers can use, as well as a classifieds type capability. So a place for you to, for example, list your car for sale. The company operates across Central and South America, and I think in 2020 it became the largest company in that region. It's quite often called the Amazon of South America or Latin America, but in fact, it's a bit more than that. It's kind of like Amazon, except for AWS, eBay, PayPal, Square, Shopify, and a few other things. Its largest market is Brazil. Brazil is a pretty large country, if for anyone that hasn't looked at a map of South America recently, and so that's where a lot of their business is done. The company is also growing very fast, although there are some areas that are growing much faster than others. For example, the payment solution, Mercado Pago, is one of the strongest growth engines of the company at the moment. Okay, let's take a look at a few key points with regards to the business. Let's start with the bad. The stock price was down nearly 50% recently. So you can see there was a double top confirming the recent all-time high, nearly at $2,000, before the drop all the way down to about $1,000. There was also a pretty chunky equity issue recently of a million shares, which will dilute investors. This offering was also at a share price that was below the share price at that current point in time. And if you look at the chart, you can see that around this point in time, the stock dropped pretty damn hard, although this wasn't the only influence on the stock price, but it seemed to catalyze the drop. In terms of other points, negative points for Mercado Libre, when any company is very successful in a particular region, other companies will want to have some of that success. And so we see a number of players they've tried to enter the South American market, the Latin American market, and have failed. But there are some that have been quite successful. One of them is Shopee. The app made a fairly slow start in the Brazilian market, but you can see that as of 2020, it was the leading app downloaded in Brazil. So this is a serious threat. However, Mercado Libre is the incumbent company. They already own a very large part of the market, have been very successful for a long time, are well known and trusted. The Latin American market itself is worth, I think, roughly $105 billion, just the online shopping market, not all the other bits and pieces that I mentioned, payments and financing. And so the pie could definitely be shared, but investors are going to be worried because this seems like a competitor, a successful competitor, now entering the market and potentially going to take market share. A few other key aspects to consider, negative points, are that the inflation rate in the region is pretty damn high. Mercado Libre doesn't service all of the countries in this list, but it does service quite a few of them. You can see Brazil, the inflation rate is 10%. And because of these high inflation rates, we're seeing very high interest rates. Here we are worried about interest rates in the US moving up to 1%. In Brazil, they're already at 9.25%. Emerging market countries have had a much tougher time in the pandemic. So poorer countries find it much harder to support their citizens and themselves. There are also a number of other very interesting goings-on, some very strange politics going on in several of the countries, probably driven to some degree by things like high inflation and interest rates. On top of this, because the company operates within Latin America, it has to do business in the local currencies, and these currencies haven't been doing very well against the dollar. The combination of all of these things creates additional complexity and risks when it comes to doing business in Latin America. So these are obviously bad points that we should take note of. Now, the situation in Brazil in particular, their largest market, has not been fantastic. I don't know if you watch my update videos, but politically they're in a bit of hot water. And this is reflected in this ETF of the Brazilian stock market. You can see that this has been tanking, dropping pretty hard and consistently since June last year, and now is pretty close to prices not seen since very early on in the pandemic. This is very scary, very worrying, but on the flip side, this also looks like the kind of chart that has a lot of opportunity behind it. One of the reasons that I'm not too concerned when it comes to MELI and its operations in Latin America is that this company has been operating there for 23 years. This crisis is certainly unique in recent history, but there have been a number of crazy goings-on in Latin America over the past 2 decades that Mercado Libre has successfully navigated and come out of the other side incredibly successful. Don't forget, there was the dot-com boom and bust, as well as the great financial crisis and a number of other things that have been going on in Latin America over the past 2 decades. And the company has done very, very well. What I really like is that the founder, who is also the CEO of the company, is still with the company and running it, and he has a huge vested interest as the third largest shareholder within the company. So I think that's a fairly optimistic negative point, right? So bad things are happening, but actually they've happened before. The company's navigated them successfully. The leader at the helm has been there since the beginning and has built this fantastic company. So what else does the company have going forward? What are the good points that we need to consider? Well, one of them is incredible growth, and this is a sign of a very successful company, obviously. Growth in revenue has been powerful. Growth in profit has been fantastic. Over the past 5 years, Mercado Libre has grown their revenue 640%. Gross profit has increased 400%. EPS growth in recent quarters has also been very, very strong, beating analysts' estimates. Now, I know when looking at this data on screen, you can see that through 2018 to 2020, there were some years where profit was in the red. Now, this is something that we always will want to deep dive just in case it's a sign of some trouble within the business. But large companies like this, like Amazon, there are periods where they are taking profits and reinvesting those in the company. And sometimes the fruit of those investments aren't born for many quarters, sometimes years. What we can see is that these investments have seemed to be paying off recently. And if we believe the estimates for the future through to the end of 2022, Mercado Libre will have its largest profit ever this year. Other good points to consider are that the company is a known innovator. So they started with one type of business and have slowly built out multiple other types of business that work well alongside their core offering. They've expanded into other markets fairly rapidly. And they've done things such as adding crypto capabilities to their wallet in order to take advantage of changes in consumer trends. Lockdowns in Latin America, like in most other places in the world, have accelerated the trend for people to shop online. And we can see that the expected growth from year to year doesn't seem like it's going to slow down. From $68 billion in 2020 through to $160 billion in 2025. This is just the e-commerce side of things, by the way. Over 5 years, more than doubling of the amount of business that's going to operate within the region. And like I previously mentioned, Mercado Libre isn't just the Amazon minus AWS of Latin America. It's diversified. It's got other business units that it can lean on. And all of them are collectively growing, but some of them are growing like crazy. And the last positive point that I'm going to mention is also a negative point that I mentioned earlier, which is the stock price was down nearly 50% from its recent all-time high. Has it hit a bottom? Well, it's touched this level twice recently and bounced quite nicely yesterday. I'm not sure if this is the local bottom for now, but even at these prices, I think that the company is very cheap. So finally, we've looked at the company. We know what they do. We know the bad things that are going on that we need to be considerate of. We know the good things that are going on. And it feels like we have enough information, at least at a summary level, to start developing a case. Is there an opportunity here? There are a few different ways to value any type of business, and I encourage you to use at least 2 or 3 of those methods when performing your valuations, just because none of those methods are perfect. For this video, I'm just going to do one of those methods, a very quick and dirty way for you to literally just scratch out what you think a valuation might be, and then you can confirm it using other methods. The key piece of data that I'm going to use here is the PS, the price to sales ratio. So on screen, you can see that through to the beginning of 2017, the price to sales ratio for MELI, Mercado Libre, has gone as high as 29 times, has gone as low as 7.5 times, has a mean of roughly 14.5, and currently is sitting around 9 kind of times. In order to do our quick and dirty valuation, we can use the current and mean price to sales ratio together with some estimates of revenue growth. So for 2020 and 2021, we know what the revenue levels will be. I've had to estimate the final quarter, but this seems like it will be more or less where they will land. So growth between these 2 years in terms of revenue was 75%, monumental. I've also taken the estimate for 2022, which gives 35% growth in revenue from 2021 levels. And then I've estimated growth for every year beyond that, but in decreasing increments. So 25% growth, 20% growth, and then 15% growth. I've then used the price to sales ratio of 9, the current level, more or less, to calculate what the share price might be through a particular year. So for 2022, according to this calculation, the share price could be $1,681. By 2025, the share price could be $2,900. Now, this is the current price to sales ratio, which is pretty low given the history. So if we were to use the mean value for the price to sales ratio of 14.5 instead, then through 2022, we're looking at an increase in the share price of over 100% and an increase of nearly 300% by 2025. Now, I think that we're going to experience multiple compression over the next few years. The operating environment is becoming a little less friendly towards businesses, and this means that the mean is probably going to come down a little bit. So we could vary these estimates by saying that the mean might end up being by 2025 12 instead of 14.5, in which case we get this new set of results. Still decent uplift from today's current share price, giving a return of 91% by the end of 2022 and 229% by the end of 2025. Now again, this is just a quick and dirty way of coming to a valuation. And as I said before, you should use more than one method, preferably 3 methods, of trying to come to some sort of estimate, price estimate, before deciding whether you want to buy into a stock. That's it for today's stock analysis video. Investing in emerging markets is always a little bit more risky than in developed markets. But sometimes that means that there is more potential reward. I wouldn't invest in small companies in emerging markets, but Mercado Libre is a large company that's been operating there for 2+ decades. So I think that this is a fantastic opportunity. And that's why they are my second largest position in my public-facing portfolio on eToro. I hope that was helpful. I'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.